Sybil Dunning is an Austrian actress, film director, screenwriter, and film producer. Enchanting photo shoot 1969. Washington, D.C., 1919. Franklin Motor Car Company police van. June 1929. Young boy with bucket and pole on the Potomac. We hope you have a license to operate that thing. Detroit, Michigan, circa 1905. Cincinnati, Hamilton and Dayton Railroad Office, Woodward Jefferson Avies. Card game at Floyd's, February 11, 1952. Going clockwise from lower left, Dottie, Ivan, Grace, Ratch and Floyd playing Rummy Royal. May 1943. Keysville, Virginia. Randolph Henry High School. Kitchen of cafeteria. Lunches cost about 15 cents. Students don't have much money and they bring produce from farms and receive tickets. January 1922. 3 REO speed wagons delivered by True Motor Company to the D.C. Police Department for patrols. New York in 1909. Metropolitan Life Insurance Building in Madison Square. Demonstration at the Red Cross Emergency Ambulance Station in Washington, D.C., during the influenza pandemic of 1918. September 7, 1952. Picnic at Austin. Ivan, Dottie, Loren, Grace. June 1924. Washington, D.C. Largest and most powerful electric locomotive in the world being exhibited by the Chicago, Milwaukee St. Paul Railway and the General Electric Company. May 1942. Parris Island, South Carolina. Marine Corps Glider Detachment Training Camp. A glider winch. Hubert Sally, August 1952. In the latest episode of Minnesota Kodachromes, the DeSoto and Dalmatian we saw with Grace are back for an encore. June 1924. Washington, D.C. Largest and most powerful electric locomotive in the world being exhibited by the Chicago, Milwaukee St. Paul Railway and the General Electric Company. April 1956. Shirtless teenage boy dancing in the audience at a performance by Bill Haley and the Comets and Laverne Baker at the Sports Arena, Hershey, Pennsylvania. October 1939. Display of magazines for sale in Taylor, Texas. We'll take one of each, please. April 1956. Performance by Bill Haley and the Comets and Laverne Baker at the Sports Arena in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Washington, D.C., 1924. Rock Creek Park scenes. Girls on Bridge. L.R., Catherine Wren, Norville Munford, Mary Happer, Cecil Lester Jones, Jesse Adkins, Doris Wagner, Virginia Selden, Mildred Crosby and Mary Selden. Leslie, February 28, 1952. Visiting the abode of Grace and Hubert, whose low-key decor whispers of subdued scarlets and tentative teals. July 13, 1952. Maureen, Grace, Helen, Albert, Leslie and Morris at St. Mary's, Rochester. July 1940. Migratory agricultural worker from Florida waiting to leave Belcross, NC, to another job at Onley, Virginia. It is Sunday and she is wearing her best clothes. March 1943. Walter V. Dew, rear brakeman on the Atchison, Topeka Santa Fe between Chicago and Chillicothe, Illinois, watching the train from the cupola. April 2, 1909. Playground at Hamilton Fish Park. New York, New York, it's a toddler town. Howard Rena, April 1952. Visiting Claude's farm somewhere in Minnesota, affording us our third look at these colorful Kodachromes. Washington, D.C. NO caption is the caption on this Harris Ewing glass negative from 1935 of a lady and her furry friend. Chicago circa 1910. Madison Street, Hotel Brevoort La Salle Opera House. Grace at Claude's farm, April 27, 1952. Along with Sally the Dalmatian, in our second slide from the Minnesota Kodachromes we got on eBay. The beautiful Raquel Welch is an American actress and sex symbol of the 1970s. December 17, 1943. Hoffman La Roche Incorporated, Nutley, New Jersey. Building 34, 3 Kettles. Fodler Company, client. 1909. Majestic building from Detroit Opera House. With serve self lunch and basement. Washington, D.C., 1920. Mary Claffett, Irene Ella Scherer, Mary Fassenayer. December 1942. Chicago, Illinois. Working on a giant locomotive, one of the 400s, in the Chicago Northwestern Railroad shops. Butch Sally. February 13, 1952. Introducing a new series of Kodachromes, that beautiful historical, found on eBay, taken by a family somewhere in Minnesota. Toledo, Ohio, circa 1909. Madison Avenue. Fast forward a few years from our previous view of downtown Toledo, and we now have automobiles and a new booty. Toledo, Ohio, circa 1905. Madison Avenue from Summit Street. Featuring the hotel booty and a number of painless dentists, as well as a nice display of wallpaper and decorative materials. December 17, 1943. Hoffman La Roche Incorporated, Nutley, New Jersey. Building 28. Fodler Company client. Summer 1927. New York City views Long Beach. Raw material for a Glias Williams or Roz Chast. (1935) Row houses in Washington, D.C. Running the vertical gamut from natty to gritty. Chinatown, San Francisco, August 1957. Taken on the same visit as the drive down the Vertigo location. Circa 1905. Front piazza of Kittatinny House, Delaware Water Gap, Pennsylvania. January 1942. Elm Street Theater Row in Dallas. Circa 1905. Street View, Delaware, Water Gap, Pennsylvania. May 1943. New York. Emptying garbage and trash from Harlem apartment houses. Circa 1900. Pabst Brewery, Milwaukee. Avenue of the Beer Wagons. April 1937. Negro houses in Mobile, Alabama. Our third dispatch today from Arthur Rothstein's trip south for the Resettlement Administration. July 1942. East Montpelier, Vermont. Conrad Ormsby with automatic electric milkers. His father agreed to increase his Jersey herd from 25 to 30 milkers to aid in the Food for Freedom program. Washington, D.C., 1935. Senator Huey P. Long. New York circa 1907. Marble Collegiate Church, 5th Avenue. Surrounded by a host of ectoplasmic pedestrians. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Carmen Russo is a famous Italian actress. Photo 1978. Film actress, singer, photo model and writer. Photo 1955. Judy Landers, American film and television actress. Photo shoot 1979. August 8, 1924. Stuart Short, John Ayres, Elliott Smith at White House, who seemed to be bicycling to Atlantic City in August. June 1942. Light tank, Fort Knox, Kentucky. New Zealand circa 1902. 3 men at campsite doing odd jobs, showing one man chopping wood, one man doing dishes and the other man cooking, possibly Christchurch district. September 1942. Richwood, West Virginia station seen at departure of men to help in the harvest in upstate New York. Circa 1900. Barge Office, New York. Meet you at the lunch wagon. (1936). Mickey Rooney and Spencer Tracy in the film Riff Raff. Circa 1905. Main Street, Mackinac Island, where pedestrians may avail themselves of Bailey's, a buffet, bazaar and bric-a-brac. (1954). Washington, D.C. Hibbs Building, 15th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. Exterior. June 1943. Arlington County, Virginia. Arlington Farms, War Duration Residence Halls. Sunbathers on the sidewalk in the back of Idaho Hall. (1938) Stuttgart, Germany. Von der Six. Reichstagung der Auslandstischen. Hitler Youth intent during festivities for the 6th Annual National Days of Foreign Germans. Washington, D.C., circa 1920s. Wrecked house is all it says on this undated and moldy 8x6 glass negative. May 1942. Southington, Connecticut. School children pledging allegiance to the flag. Circa 1911, our second selection from the panoramic series. Washington from Washington Monument. Landmarks include the State, War Navy building at left. New Zealand circa 1950s. Motto with Ringer washing machine. I am woman, see me wash. Montgomery, Alabama, circa 1906. Commerce Street from Court Square, whose designer would probably be none too pleased with the telephone poles and wires sprouting from his fountain. July 1942. U.S. Naval Academy, Annapolis, Maryland. Rowing crew. March 1959. Home Economist and Anderson demonstrating appliances and features of RCA Whirlpool Miracle Kitchen of the Future, a display at the American National Exhibition in Moscow. February 1943. Moreno Valley, Colfax County, New Mexico. George Mutz's youngest daughter helping with the cooking. Washington, D.C., 1920. Lust Baby Show. Which is probably not what it sounds like, a baby contest at Polly's Theater organized by cinema impresario Sidney Lust would be our guess. June 1943. Arlington County, Virginia. Arlington Farms, War Duration Residence Halls. A room at Idaho Hall. Denver, Colorado, circa 1908. Welcome Arch and Union Depot, where blurry pedestrians risk the retoucher's brush. New York circa 1905. Park Avenue Hotel, 4th Avenue entrance. December 13, 1946. Morris Lapidus, 256 East 49th Street, New York. Lapidus in his office. (1864). Point of Rocks, Virginia, vicinity. Redoubt Zabriskie on Appomattox River. New York, 1942. Catherine Crum, the wife of bandleader Eddie South, in the dental chair. Now, Mrs. South, if you'll just open a little wider, this won't hurt a bit. The Enchanting Marguerite, MP, 1956. February 1943. Moreno Valley, New Mexico. William Heck Ranch. Mrs. Heck getting supper. Denver, Colorado, circa 1908. Welcome march at Union Depot looking down 17th Street. (1914). Cats in coveralls on chin-up bar. Photo by Harry Whittier Fries, patient poser of anthropomorphic puppies and kitschy kittens. January 19, 1956. Wellington, New Zealand. Anthony and Paul Banks with a Hoover washing machine. Washington, D.C., 1931. Man with portable radio receiver and phonograph, who seems to be using the amplifier to play a record into a microphone. The Flood Mansion, Nob Hill. After the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fire, which was 117 years ago today. March 1940. The Flood Mansion in San Francisco, last seen here after being gutted by fire following the 1906 earthquake, 1,117 years ago today. Washington, D.C., 1931. The caption for this one is an O caption. What's going on here? Back to my Uncle Albert in his office at the Foot, Cone and Belding Advertising Agency in San Francisco's Russ Building about 1954. Washington, D.C. Mrs. Bobby's Group, 1924. (1905). R.H. Macy Company, New York. The famous department store. Corner tenant, Lucio's, the jeweler whose pearls, rubies and diamonds defied detection. February 1921. Washington, D.C. Army car at Connecticut Avenue Bridge. A sort of Model T on steroids. March 1940. McCoy Label Company, Old U.S. Sub-Treasury Mint, 608 Commercial Street, San Francisco. Detroit circa 1907. A glimpse of Woodward Avenue from City Hall. Washington, D.C., 1931. Man partially submerged in tank with breathing apparatus. March 27, 1934. Auburn, Placer County, California. General view of firehouse and commercial buildings at Grass Valley and Sacramento Roads. Fall 1941. Jackson, Michigan. Soldier granted a furlough to help with harvesting on this farm, watching threshing. February 1921. Washington, D.C. Army car at Connecticut Avenue Bridge. March 10, 1934. Weaverville, Trinity County, California. General view looking west. February 1943. Moreno Valley, Colfax County, New Mexico. George Mutz's daughter grinding meat on the ranch. Washington, D.C., 1931. Fingerprinting is all it says here. Supplementary thought balloon. Handcuffs. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Linda Lusardi, English actress, television presenter, and former glamour model. Photo 1980. And here we go. Enchanting Samantha Fox at a photo shoot in a red bikini, 1987. Marissa Mathis is a model and social media personality. Photo from 1962. Summer 1914. Penn's second varsity crew team in Poughkeepsie. Rowers at the boathouse. Circa 1906. Mobile, Alabama Government Street. Look out, kids, it's the Detroit publishing photographer. July 1943. Rockville, Maryland vicinity. Private Harvey Horton, visiting the NC Styles Dairy Farm while on furlough from Fort Belvoir, Virginia, at dinner with the family. Washington, D.C., 1922. Fire layout answering the fire bell. September 1954. Photographs show actor Gary Cooper at home in California with wife Veronica and daughter Maria, and on patio smoking pipe. Washington, D.C., 1922. Fire layout answering the fire bell. The second installment of this thrilling series. My younger brother, riding his new bike. Our street was a cul-de-sac in Walnut, California. This was probably around 1968. It was a good place for kids to explore the nearby hills. We learned to ride bikes, spend weekend mornings hiking the hills, and staying away from our parents. August 5, 1959. Russians looking at television sets and radios at the USSR exhibition in Sokolniki Park, Moscow, next to the American National Exhibition. (1904). Fisher schooners at T Wharf, Boston. George H. Libby at left. I purchased this 8x10 print at the swap meet. On the back is printed, Mr. and Mrs. Cliff McCorkle, proprietors of the 101 Broadway Pharmacy, Richmond, California, getting an order ready for delivery. November 5, 1957. Boston circa 1905. Scollay Square Station. Drugstore sodas 5 cents. None better. Washington, D.C. Flood, April 30th, 1923. Also some 91-year-old graffiti. EHLTD. September 4th, 1924. The future Norma Desmond shipboard in New York. Now where'd we put our close-up lens? February 1943. Moreno Valley, Colfax County, New Mexico. Dinner time on George Mutz's ranch. Our fourth visit with various members of the Mutz family. September 1941. Main Street of Old Mining Town, Leadville, Colorado. Washington, D.C., circa 1922. Automobile accident recreation with miniature cars. Go directly to jail. circa 1905. Carnegie Steel Plant, Homestead, Pennsylvania. February 19, 1949. Lamont Library, Harvard University, Cambridge, Massachusetts. 5th level reading room. Coolidge, Shepley, Bulfinch Abbott, architect. August 1933. Washington, D.C. Crescent Limited train wreck. Washington, August 25, 1933. While thousands worked to overcome the havoc wreaked by the storm in the capital, 300 trainmen struggled with the wreck of the Crescent Limited. The crack extra fare express was hurtled yesterday from the tracks of the Pennsylvania Railroad. Lasses and Grasses circa 1920s. Nelson District, New Zealand. Row of young women, music hall dancers, in costume, standing barefoot in dance pose, wearing headbands, long strings of beads, Hawaiian hula-style grass skirts and anklets. October 1935. Washington, D.C. Capital Transit buses, F and 13th SDSNW. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Circa 1904. North Veranda, Manhasset House, Shelter Island, New York. (1904). Under the Great Oak, Manhasset Manor, Shelter Island, New York. Washington, D.C., or vicinity. Flooding. Aftermath of the Chesapeake Potomac hurricane of August 1933. Who can locate this waterlogged crossroads with good shop, hot dogs going for a nickel? Linda Carter is an American actress and singer, 1974. February 1943. Moreno Valley, New Mexico. William Heck Ranch. Mrs. Heck getting supper. June 1906. Ariel Mountaineer, New York to San Francisco and back. Percy McGargle and David Fassett on 162nd Street in the Bronx at the end of their 10-month, 11,000-mile trip in a 16-horsepower REO Ransom E. Olds touring car. New York or vicinity circa 1921. Byron on boat. The actor Arthur Byron and family. (1941). Free coffee served at the picnic grounds on the 4th of July at Vail, Oregon. July 1942. Washington, D.C. A Sunday picnic in Rock Creek Park. Mr. Cliff McCorkle, proprietor and pharmacist of the 101 Broadway Pharmacy, Richmond, California, preparing a prescription. November 5, 1957. July 1941. Fun at the water fountain. 4th of July picnic in Vail, Oregon. Circa 1904. The Churchill House. No location given, but neighboring images in this sequence were taken in Vermont. Circa 1905. Ohio River levee at Louisville, Kentucky. Note the U.S. Life-Saving Station. (1902). The Basin, Lower Spring, Banff, Alberta. A Banff Spring, without the hotel usually appended to that phrase. June 1914. Wisconsin varsity crew on the Hudson. Souvenir from the heyday of the Poughkeepsie Regatta. (1942). Melbourne, Australia. Beaufort torpedo bomber final assembly plant. Airplane, check. Guy in plane, check. September 17, 1935. These two 150-foot-tall brick smokestacks on the Mall in Washington, D.C., were considered an eyesore and ordered demolished. They were erected when a central heating plant occupied the site. Circa 1900. C.S. Jackson Group, on Dudley Walker's porch. Washington, D.C., circa 1921. Adams Iron Building, F Street. Its ferrous nature echoed in the sidewalk of many manholes. An uncaptioned photo taken by Marion Post Walcott in September 1941, whose neighbors show bean threshing activities in the North Platte River Valley of Nebraska. So we'll call these guys the Legume Brothers. This uncaptioned 5x7 glass negative from the Detroit Publishing Archive looks to be far afield from that company's usual stomping grounds. Where in the world are we? August 21st, 1924. New York. C.G. Dawes. Charles G. Dawes, some 2 months away from being elected Vice President of the United States. His platform: helping the little man. March 1943. Fort Madison, Iowa. Shopton Locomotive Shops of the Atchison, Topeka Santa Fe Railroad. New York, 1917. The American soprano Marcia Van Dresser, who participated in war bond and patriotic programs at the Metropolitan Opera. 1904. Nelson House, Poughkeepsie, New York. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Debbie Ashby, former English glamour model, 1988. This is the beautiful Raquel Welch in a fur bikini in 1966. Meg Miles, American pinup model, singer and actress on stage and screen. Photo 1957. Spring 1937. This family without food and work about to be returned to Oklahoma by the Relief Administration. They have lost a baby as a result of exposure during the winter. Had to sell their tent and car to buy food. Night for Camp, Holtville, Imperial Valley, California. 1943. Melbourne, Australia. United States Army Hospital. Patient receiving treatment in new fever machine which keeps temperature at 107 degrees. 108 degrees is fatal. No Dyson basin and fan to cool head. 1929. Washington, D.C. or vicinity. And no caption, man in airplane. Circa 1912. New York Public Library building, with a variety of motorized conveyances. Washington, D.C. or vicinity, circa 1932. And no caption, boys camped in woods. New Zealand, circa 1905. E-Class locomotive, E66, at the Petwan Railway Workshops, with William Godbeer standing on the front. Known as Pearson's Dream, designed by G.A. Pearson, and built in 1905 for use on the Rimataka Incline, written off in 1917. Washington, D.C., circa 1932. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Filing fingerprints and mugshots. July 1943. Greenville, South Carolina. Air Service Command. Writing a letter home. Detroit, circa 1903. Swimming pool, Belle Isle Park, evidently. No girls allowed. October 1943. Washington, D.C. Girls playing soccer in physical education class at Woodrow Wilson High School. Saddle shoes connects in a 1-0 nail biter. August 8th. 1925. Dr. H.W. Evans, Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, KKK Parade, Washington. Circa 1900. Niagara Falls, New York. Whirlpool Rapids, Grand Trunk Railway, bridge with Michigan Central Cantilever Bridge in background. Circa 1908. DeSoto Hotel, Savannah, Georgia. Automobilists welcome. July 1939. Mr. Whitfield, tobacco sharecropper, with baby on front porch. North Carolina, Person County, near Gordonton. The Jersey Shore in 1904. Pier at the Inlet, Atlantic City. April 1924. Washington, D.C. Group holding Arkansas state flag. Regnant populace. November 15, 1955. Dr. Joyce Brothers holds up her category, boxing, after winning $8,000 on the CBS television program The $64,000 Question. Dr. Brothers will return next week to decide whether to keep the $8,000 or risk it against $16,000. May 1925. Major John G. Quagmire, formerly aide-de-camp to General Pershing, with Argentina, a 6-year-old polo pony given to him by the Minister of War of the Argentine Republic, General Justo. New Zealand circa 1905. Men doing chores at a campsite, all in striped tops, possibly Sumner, Christchurch. Circa 1910. Packet steamer Jazz, T. Staples. April 11, 1912. Detroit City Gas Company Foundation for Retort House. Washington, D.C., 1923. A.W. Leonard. National Photo Company lensman. Artie. Leonard chasing a shot. September 1942. Civilian defense. Fire prevention. The careless smoker causes more fires each year than any other person in the country. He is to blame for 87,000 separate 1941 fires, which resulted in the loss of many lives and the destruction of $14 million of property. August 1942. Production. Parachute making. As these two girls thread shroud cords through the material, these yards of silk become more nearly recognizable as one of the parachutes turned out by this eastern plant. Pioneer Parachute Company, Manchester, Connecticut. New Zealand in 1909. The Rotorua Express leaving Auckland, alongside Customs Street East. 1922. Hoping for Harding. Group of women with automobile at White House. Charming Lou Varley in a 1970s retro photo shoot. Vicksburg, Mississippi, circa 1909. View along Washington Street. Circa 1905. Sorting Cotton Atlantic Cotton Compress Company, Pensacola, Florida. A trip to Disneyland in March 1957, taken by my dad with his relatively new Conta. Scanned from original Kodachrome slide. March 1943. New York, New York. Times Square on a rainy day. June 1944. Brooklyn, New York. Home nursing class held at the community house of the Church of the Good Shepherd. Also, the Basic 7 food groups. Washington, D.C., circa 1920. Washington Herald, 1210 18th Street Northwest. The business next door, its products having motored off into oblivion, is now a payway. New York circa 1908. Broadway and Trinity Building, with the Singer Tower bringing up the rear. March 1943. Washington, D.C. riding on a streetcar. More hats with netting. May 1937. One of 3 related Oklahoma drought refugee families on the highway near Lordsburg, New Mexico, going to Roswell to chop cotton. New York in 1908. Hotel Astor, Times Square. Note the fancy roof garden. Washington, D.C., circa 1922. NO caption: Children, police motorcycles with sidecars, and streetcar and street. From a series of photos whose subject seems to be traffic safety. Washington, D.C., circa 1922. NO caption: Streetcar stop. Our second sample from this series of traffic-related views. Who can locate the intersection? February 1937. Missouri family of 5, 7 months from the drought area. Broke baby sick car trouble. US 99 near Tracy, California. There's no caption for this yellowing print of a lady at an office desk with postage stamps, quite possibly on October 19, 1925. December 1908. Catawba Cotton Mills, Newton, North Carolina. It seems a pity that some of the spinning frames are so large that the children cannot operate them. Syracuse, New York, circa 1904. Genesee Street. Early 1900 standbys include the usual assortment of painless dentists and a misfit clothing parlor. The Jersey Shore circa 1908. Atlantic City Bathing Beach and Steeplechase Pier. Who out there can fill us in on human roulette and human Niagara? Washington, D.C., circa 1922. NO caption, street near White House. Another of the Harris Ewing traffic photos, this one showing what looks like a wayward gas pump. March 1943. New York. Trucks in the Garment District. December 27, 1920. New York. The Hilger sisters Mary, Maria, Elsa, Margaret, Greta. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Linda Carter is an American actress and sex symbol of the 1970s. Photo shoot on the beach in a bikini, 1974. Atherine Bach is an American actress. Photo shoot 1976. (1951), Santa Barbara, California. Lana Turner lounging by the pool at the Coral Casino. April 1941. Children playing on the street. Chicago, Illinois. New York, 1957. Maya Angelou, full-length portrait, dressed for her part in the Caribbean Calypso Festival. October 23, 1909. New York. Dueling with wax bullets. Memphis circa 1906. Tennessee Club. Bonus points if you can identify the runabout. No caption. Our wayfarers from 1932 and last week are back, ready for a swim and or bath. January 11, 1941. Triborough Hospital for Tuberculosis, Parsons Boulevard, Jamaica, Queens, New York. X-ray viewing room. Eggers Higgins architect. Florida circa 1908. Blunt Building, Pensacola. Still standing, at the corner of Garden and Palafox. October 1942. State School of Mines in Golden, Colorado. Students in defense training courses at a famous mining engineering school listen as an instructor shows them how the machine operates. August 1942. Republic Drill and Tool Company, Chicago. Pioneers of the production line, women for more than a year, and company production figures have continued to soar. Knoxville, Tennessee, ca. 1941. Miscellaneous lot of photographs by Barbara Wright related to Tennessee Valley Authority projects and region. (1924). Probably the smallest plane in the world. Built by Edmund Allen of Washington, D.C., who was formerly test pilot for Army Air Service during the World War. New Zealand circa 1909. Class A locomotive, NZR number 419, at the Petwan Railway Workshops. July 23, 1925. Washington, D.C. Central Union Mission Outing Orphans Picnic. February 1956. Domestic worker fixing girl's hair. From photos by Byrne Keating for the Look magazine article. The South versus the Supreme Court. What is a Southerner? Petwan Railway Workshops circa 1905. October 23, 1959. Hackensack, New Jersey. Bloomingdale's Bergen County. Girls 3 to 14. Raymond Lowy Associates, client. Washington, D.C., 1932. Metropolitan Police officer on motorcycle. Keeping the peace in the Gas House District. Circa 1906. South Avenue, Rochester, New York. Home to trusses, vaudeville and streetcars, and probably a painless dental parlor or two concealed from view. 1914. Costumed kittens with thread and scissors and overturned sewing basket. New York, 1911. Battling, Bat, Nelson, left, and sparring partner, our fourth look at the scrappy lightweight boxing champ. (1955). Peggy Lee singing into tape recorder accompanied by Sonny Burke. Soundtrack for Walt Disney's CinemaScope cartoon feature Lady and the Tramp. (1922). Policeman directing traffic at 9th and G Streets NW, Washington, D.C. Knoxville, Tennessee, ca. 1941. Miscellaneous lot of photographs by Barbara Wright related to Tennessee Valley Authority projects and region. Circa 1900. Soldiers and Sailors Monument, Cleveland, Ohio. (1954). Backyard rooms. Woman posed with yard equipment, outdoor furniture, appliances and utensils used to cook outdoors. Charming Lonnie Anderson, American actress. Photo by The Rocks, 1969. Washington, D.C., or vicinity in 1932. No caption, boys cooking over campfire next to no trespassing sign. (1966). Portable modular furniture box lodging, designed by Kenneth Isaacs to serve as all-in-one units for 1 or 2 people. Includes Isaacs and wife Barbara entertaining guests in their apartment. July 1942. Conservation. Rubber. This truck tire has run 146,000 miles. It is now planned to retread it with a life expectancy of at least half the original mileage. Detroit circa 1901. Excursion steamers Tashmoo and Idlewild at wharf. No loafing allowed. Florida circa 1905. Surf bathing at Palm Beach. No ocean was ever a prettier shade of gray. (1932), Washington, D.C. or vicinity. No caption, boys camped in woods. Our second glimpse of these juvenile vagabonds. June 6, 1944. Times Square and vicinity on D-Day. Watching the news line on the New York Times building. June 6, 1944. New York, New York. Times Square and vicinity on D-Day. A D-Day triptych. New York, New York. June 6, 1944. Congregation Emunith, Israel. D-Day services in a synagogue on West 23rd Street. New Zealand circa 1905. Young men doing chores next to tent at a campsite, probably Christchurch district. August 1958. U.S. Branch Mint, Mission 5th Streets, San Francisco. Washington, D.C., 1935. Streamlined streetcar, Capital Transit Company. The last word in modern mass transit. April 26, 1924. Walking from San Francisco to New York for his health, W. E. Campbell stops at the White House. He left California October 23, 1923. April 5, 1924. New York. Lambden K., broadcaster and celebrated thingamabob prodigy. January 1937. Deerfield, Florida. Fruit tramp at rooming house for employees of the tomato packing plant. (1865) Petersburg, Virginia. Interior view of Fort Sedgwick. Somewhere around Los Angeles circa 1958. Aluminum group furniture, chairs, ottomans, tables, designed by Charles Eames for Herman Miller Incorporated. Manhattan circa 1908. Times Square and New York Times Building. Now playing at the Astor. Paid in full. Washington, D.C., circa 1929. No caption, radio set. June 1932. Washington, D.C. Aviator Amelia Earhart Putnam being greeted by Doctors Gilbert Grosvenor, Wright, and John Oliver Lawgorse of the National Geographic Society. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Farrah Fawcett was an American actress, model, and artist. Photo 1971. She she achieved her greatest success in the late 70s and 80s through roles as stylish and glamorous women in film and television. Photo 1976. Enchanting photo shoot of Gaynor Goodman in a beautiful outfit. Kay Fancher, February 23, 1952. The latest episode of Minnesota Kodachrome's co-stars Hubert's record collection, which includes the classics Accordiana and Larry Adler, Harmonica Virtuoso. Pittsburgh circa 1912. Pennsylvania Avenue and Joseph Horn's store. Detroit, Michigan, circa 1905. Cincinnati, Hamilton and Dayton Railroad Office, Woodward Jefferson Avies. Washington, D.C. NO caption, Girl with Doll, 1926 or 1927. Probably warning her about that McCarthy boy. July 1911. Street scene, 2nd Avenue, Asbury Park. Greetings from this pleasant setting for the ice wagon, streetcar, sandwich shop and resort hotels. October 1939. 5 Idaho farmers, members of Ola Self-Help Sawmill Co-op, in the woods standing against a load of logs ready to go down to their mill about 3 miles away. Gem County, Idaho. December 1942. Checking electrical wiring assemblies for B-17F, Flying Fortress, bombers at the Boeing plant in Seattle. Merchants Transfer Storage Company, Washington, D.C. In 1911, moving a boiler on D Street within sight of the Capitol with a 12-horse team. Bonus, many old billboards. Amy Frandl, March 2, 1952. The latest episode of Minnesota Kodachromes takes place at the kitchen table. The cake looks delicious, but we'll start with a slice of that cherry pie, please. (1944) Actress Lauren Bacall, 3/4 portrait, in houndstooth check jacket. Circa 1910. Ford J. Mrs. Group. An outlier among Harris Ewing's generally sedate and sober studio portraits. Ford J. Mrs. Group. Sequel to the whimsical Harris Ewing portrait. February 1943. This image in a jacket marked killed. from photos taken in and around Albuquerque, New Mexico. Washington, D.C., circa 1915. Purchased David E. a youngster and his mate at the Harris Ewing Portrait Studio, not long before his life seems to have been cut tragically short in a traffic accident. February 28, 1952. Maureen, whose husband, Leslie, Washington, D.C., circa 1915. Miss Elizabeth Clem, daughter of Major General John L. Clem, famed in Grand Army circles as the drummer boy of Chickamauga. January 1937. Deerfield, Florida. Migrant agricultural worker from Oklahoma. (1910) Forsyth Street looking east. Our 20th large format, high-resolution view of Jacksonville, Florida. Washington, D.C., ca. 1913. Hollowhorn Bear. May 4, 1952. Dam at Blue Earth Below Cemetery. The latest installment of Minnesota Kodachromes might be titled Tadpole and the Big Dippers. November 17, 1953. FR Machine Works, 44-14 Astoria Boulevard, Long Island City, New York. General view from balcony. C.M. Johnson, client. June 1942. United States Office of Defense Transportation System of Port Control and its Traffic Channel Control. Washington, D.C. April 1930. Washington, D.C. Rush hour, 15th Street and New York Avenue at Treasury. Hubert at Claude's Farm, April 27, 1952. Hubert Tuttle and his Dalmatian, Sally, star in this latest episode of Minnesota Kodachromes. Washington, D.C., circa 1912. Employees at printing presses, Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Washington, D.C. Safest driver of 1936, John W. Hunter. English glamorous model and movie actress Pamela Green, 1951. Panama Canal excavation, 1913. The world's most celebrated shortcut marks its centennial this month. Washington, D.C., circa 1940. Cafritz, Morris, Mrs., a leader in both parties and philanthropy. Gwendolyn Cafritz was the Hungarian-born wife of real estate developer Morris Cafritz. April 1939. Salvation Army, San Francisco, California. At Minna Street, the Army forms a semicircle. Girls' Sunday school class sings between preaching to attract a crowd. Elwyn asleep, April 11, 1952. This outtake from Minnesota Kodachromes was evidently deemed worth saving despite the photographers being at the end of his roll. Circa 1903. Unloading bananas at New Orleans. Final installment of a thrilling trilogy we've watched unfold here over the past 3 years. July 1939. Siler City, North Carolina. Resting place of MP. Circa 1910. Hotel Halcyon and Avenue B looking north, Miami, Florida. January 20th, 1921. Washington, D.C. American Forestry Association Birdhouse Contest. Grace Sally, September 18, 1951. Minnesota Kodachromes at home in Blue Earth. Washington, D.C., 1920s. Gaynor, John F., Mrs., who looks like someone you would want to have at your party. July 1939. Applique embroideries for sale on street in front of 10-cent store. Saturday afternoon. Siler City, North Carolina. (1904). Produce Exchange, New York, New York. George Post Commodity Exchange on Broadway, completed in 1884. July 1939. The main street, Chatham Avenue, of Siler City, North Carolina. April 1943. Baltimore, Maryland. Crowded bus carrying people to work at 8 a.m. Washington, D.C., circa 1920. Iden v. Gilmore, Mrs. We sense a charity play in the offing, and vaguely recall having plans every night that month. Picnic at Austin Verne, Ruth, Ida Pete, September 7, 1952. Philadelphia circa 1907. Broad Street north from Locust with view of City Hall. Post and Montgomery Streets, corner of Market. Another view of San Francisco after the devastating earthquake and fire of April 1906. Washington, D.C., circa 1920. Schwartzball, see Mrs. Who'll be the first to write on her wall. Dennis Hahn Dance Company founder Ruth Street Dennis and husband Ted Shawn with garden party guests, bridesmaids, caterers, Vestal virgins, among them the modern dance pioneers Louise Brooks and Martha Graham. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Sybil Dunning, Austrian actress, 1968 photo shoot.